Blockchain is kind of difficult. It's a difficult concept. But then if you really understand the core and the background of it, it's not as complicated as you think. We are already sort of used to a version that's prior to blockchain. But if we understand where we are now and where this technology is trying to take us, I think it will be quite is going to be understandable, and I hope this lecture is helpful for you guys. So I'm assuming that most of you guys have done the reading. Before we start, why don't we just open up it to the floor and just freely share what you think blockchain is? Just just wanted to gauge people's understanding of this topic. Don't be afraid, it's okay. Okay, Aaron, what do you think about blockchain? What do you think this is?
Uh, it's kind of like it's like cryptocurrency, something
Mhm.
currency.
Okay, cryptocurrency. Okay, that's a part of it. What do you guys think of when you think of blockchain? How about we go to Victoria? She's looking somewhere else.
Um, I think it's blockchain. It's like a way of like grouping information. I'm not really sure
Hmm.
actually.
Well, actually, that's a pretty good guess. So blockchain, when we think of blockchain, a lot of people misunderstand it as something that you invest, like Bitcoin. It is true that Bitcoin is a blockchain, is a type of blockchain. It is indeed the first blockchain network that came about, but then it's a lot more than that. And today I would like to explore this with you guys. So before we get into what blockchain is, so I just want to briefly get into the background of it. So this is Isaac and maybe his servant. They're digging up a well, and they put in their time and effort in trying to dig up water. And like when they find the well, who owns that? It's Isaac, right? And Isaac and his servants, because they put in the time and they put in the labor to do that. And same thing with like oil companies. When oil companies find the well, like oil well reserve, like they put in like the capital, labor, time, and everything in order to get the oil, and the oil reserve belongs to them. But in the current era, it kind of changed. Like we say, the data is the new oil of the 21st century. It's the water in the 21st century. It's a very valuable resource. And the people who actually create data are not these companies like Google, Facebook, Tesla, or Amazon. It's actually the people who spend time on their platforms that create data. And those data are very, very valuable. How do we know that? If you look on the side here, Google, like traditionally, when a company wants to earn money, like generate revenue, what do? They produce a product that could be useful for the people and they sell it, right, to the market. But what Google did, without selling a single physical product, they became the second most valuable brand company in the world. They didn't sell a single, oh, except maybe like Google Phone, but that's not what made them up there. But they did. It's the power of data. Like Google collected the data by providing free services to you guys, to us, like Google Maps, Google Search Engine, Gmail, YouTube, all these kinds of stuff, and then they use those data in order to create ads, and it made them such a valuable company. So I got this, I found this quote. So basically, this compares us, people who are on these platforms, as oblivious gulls who happen to excrete an immensely productive resource rather than owners of the asset they create. So although it's us who create the data, it's the companies that benefit from this. So one thing that I want you to remember from this is people want to take back the ownership of data. and there's more. And the desire to kind of achieve independence from the government, like the central authority, has existed for a long time. So there was this group called crypto anarchists. So these people, what they do is, hey, let's use the computer technology. Let's use cryptography, which is a way to encrypt information. Let's use this to take back the power from the central government. Let's take the power back from the central banks, like central authorities who misuse the power and the data that they have to have control over us. So in starting like since decades ago, people wanted to get this power back. And we had this famous incident where you guys know about John Snowden, right? So John Snowden, this guy, he was a whistleblower. And what NSA tried to do was tap into people's phones, computers, and all that in order to gain information of the people. And that was kind of like people went outrageous about that. And as these kinds of like distrust and sort of complaints kind of built up over time, what happened was in 2008, there was a big financial crisis. As you guys, I don't know if you guys know about this, people who were born after like 2005, maybe you haven't really experienced it, but then in 2008, what happened was a big financial crisis that was generated, it was a market failure, but people who were in the bank, people who were in Wall Street and banks, the top executives, what they did was they basically created the recession in a sense that they misused their positions and power in order to sell the products that are dangerous, and they shouldn't have been doing that. But then because of that, they created this like speculative environment where people dangerously invested in homes. And it created like a big financial crisis that really got a lot of people unemployed and led to a lot of suicides and economic failures. And the banks that were supposed to be held responsible for this were instead paid like millions and billions of dollars after this financial crisis, because the government, because the banks were too big to fail. I'm sure you guys heard of this statement. Banks were too big to fail, as in banks were so essential in our civilization, in our society, that we didn't want the bank to go fail. So what the government did, government gave a lot of money to the banks so that they can be bailed out from this. So instead of being punished, they received a lot of money instead. So people were very, very outrageous about that. So that's why in 2009, there's this man called Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't even know who this guy is. We don't know how he looks like, but he comes up with this 9-page paper, and it attempted to completely revolutionize how our society is formed and how our society is organized. And I'm going to talk more in detail. But before that, let's try to understand through some of the examples of how our society is organized. So let's say Aaron, there's Aaron and Victoria. Sorry for using your names, but so let's say Aaron wants to send $100 to Victoria, and Aaron is rich. He has $200 on his hands, and Victoria's kind of poor. So Aaron wants to feel generous and give $100. But the problem is there are two ways he or Aaron can give Victoria money. One is they physically meet up and hand over the $100 bill to Victoria. Another way to do that is through a bank, right? Oh, sorry. So it seems really easy to send like $100 to Victoria nowadays, because we have this app and we have Zelle, we have Venmo and things like that. But then actual process through which this transaction happens is more involved than that. So when Aaron wants to send $100, he opens up his bank app, and then he verifies, like puts in his passcode and then verifies that it's Aaron. And then after that, he tells the bank, hey, I want to send $100 to Victoria. And Bank of America records that in their database. It says on June 20th, 10:30, $100 has been subtracted from Aaron's account and $100 will be added to Victoria's account. And then after that is recorded in the central database, what Bank of America does is credits $100 on Victoria's account. And then now Aaron has $100 and Victoria has $100. Let's say we don't have a bank and they cannot meet with each other because Aaron lives in New Jersey and Victoria lives in DC. So then let's say like they can just do it as if like they can send a file. They can send $100 as if like they send like a picture, for instance. So Aaron can copy and paste $100 to Victoria. What does that? What happens? Then Aaron can be super rich because he can infinitely copy and paste the money. We don't want that in our society. That's why we have a central authority. We give trust to the central authority that they will truthfully subtract $100 from Aaron's account and add $100 to Victoria's account. Then we call that a transaction when that takes place completely and truthfully, right? Let's see another example. So let's say Aaron wants to sell the Holy Bible to Victoria. How do you do that? You either physically meet and exchange the Bible for $50. Or what we do is we use this service called Amazon. So Aaron is the seller, Victoria is the buyer. What we do is entrust this transaction to Amazon, who will ensure that the payment is received from Victoria, $50, and we know and Amazon ensures that Aaron sends his Bible, and Amazon basically works as an intermediary, the third party, in order to make this transaction happen. And everything that happens, like the payment that's received and what kind of product is sent, that's all recorded in the central database, in Amazon's database. Okay, so let's stop here real quick and maybe ask for a question. Like if you don't understand something, is everything so far so good? Like, do you guys understand? Okay, then why don't we just think about another example to see that you guys really understand. Can you guys think of any example?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Actually, when you send the money through the bank takes some kind of, how do we call it, interest, or kind of when I just send the money through the Bank of America, but the receiver, if they receive from another bank, like a Citibank or other bank, they there's some charge, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't show in this transaction, and then Amazon as well, they request a kind of shipping fee, right? So
that's right. That's a very good point. And when we have these like third parties involved in these transactions, the one disadvantage is that there's a fee involved. For instance, Bank of America, if you want to have an account, with Bank of America, you need to pay a monthly fee of $12. I pay $12 per month for having a checking account. And that involves not only managing your bank account, but also like it involves like when you send money to someone, maybe overseas, there's a transaction fee that is charged. And also with Amazon, you pay, let's say, even if like shipping is free because you're a Prime member, you pay for Prime membership. And also, like if you're not a Prime member, you have to pay for shipping fees. So one thing that is a good point that Hyejung brought up was that if we have a third party in our society, it's actually costly because we're using their service. But then it's inevitable. We thought it was inevitable before blockchain, because how else can this transaction happen without them, right? You have to physically meet. So that's why I just wanted to let you know that our society is very, very dependent on third parties and intermediaries like Amazon or bank or even Uber. Like Uber is connecting two people riders and drivers. But then drivers have to pay, and the riders also have to pay Uber, not the drivers only, but it has to pay Uber for facilitating and providing this platform. Okay, same with Lyft, same with, like, you can think of almost anything, and you will find that we rely heavily on third parties.
Hey, Kite, a quick question.
Mhm.
Is another way to think about it, because you said in this case, Aaron and Victoria don't know each other, and so there's distrust, and so
Right.
so the thing that we're solving for is trust, and so I
Right.
guess is the right way to think about it, the cost of transacting on one of these platforms,
Mm.
that is the implied cost of that intangible trust, and because we don't trust each other, we trust this third party, and they extract that rent. Is that the right way to think about
Absolutely. Yeah. What Eddie just mentioned is very, very critical, I think, because why are people willing to pay Amazon? Why are people willing to pay Uber? Why are people willing to pay the bank in order to make this transaction happen? Because we don't trust each other, right? If Aaron knows Victoria, then they will truthfully make this transaction happen. But then if they're not, what if they are what if they don't know completely each other? Then how can Victoria trust Aaron that he will send the Bible truthfully to her? And how can Aaron trust that Victoria will send the $50? And what Amazon does, it ensures, hey, it's okay. We will make sure, even though you guys don't trust each other, we'll make sure this transaction will happen. So yes, definitely what Eddie said is very central to this. So we call this a transaction, and transaction is basically taking place everywhere and every day and every moment in your life. And let's look at how this, let's say Amazon or banks, how this works. So users of banks or Amazon, when they use the service, all the data is collected in the central database. So during Deacon David Shao's lecture, we've seen that those data centers and iCloud services, and we've seen big so many supercomputers in one place. So these companies, when people use these services and transact through their platforms, all the data are stored in their central database that they manage. Okay, and other people consult this database, but then there's a problem. There's a problem with the central database. So first problem, what can go wrong with these central databases? One is it's vulnerable to hacking. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have heard so many news articles, or you guys read so many news articles that, oh, the bank, the server has been hacked, or this company's server has been hacked. Therefore, all the private information has been released. Your social security number has been released, or something like that. You've heard a lot. So it's vulnerable to hacking. It's vulnerable to data loss. What if the data center where you store your data somebody commits an arson and puts the data center on fire, or there's a natural disaster and the data center is lost, and things like that. So it's vulnerable to external forces, and also it's highly inefficient. Why? Because each company or each organization has to keep the data and spend a lot of money in order to not only collect and keep the data, but also maintain it. So Bank of America has to have their own data center and needs to spend a lot of money to maintain it and prevent hacking and all that kinds of stuff. Wells Fargo has to do the same thing. Citibank has to do it. And all basically all these banks, they have to do it separately. Even though you have accounts in 3 different places, each bank has to maintain their database separately. So it's duplicated effort. And also it's another thing is it's also susceptible to misconduct. What I mean by that is companies like Google, or one really good example is Equifax. So there's a company called Equifax. What they do is it's a credit rating company, and what they do is they scrape data, your personal data, on social network on social network, like your web browsing activities and your credit card, like your credit worthiness information. They basically collect all the possible, scrape all the possible data that's available online, and they sell those data to the third parties. But then you don't even know that these data are being sold to other companies, but they're being sold. There's no regulations. There is, but not very strict. So these are all things that could go wrong with having a central database. So what came as a solution is blockchain. What blockchain is, according to Merriam-Webster, it's a digital database containing information. It's a record-keeping database that can be simultaneously used, shared with a large, decentralized, and publicly accessible network. So it might sound very gibberish, but one key thing that we should remember here is instead of having a central database, that database is shared among the people who are within the same platform. Before, only Bank of America and the executives of the Bank of America had the access to information and the database. Now, anyone through this blockchain, anyone in the blockchain community or in the blockchain network can access the information. And it's being distributed real time. That's why it's decentralized and publicly accessible. Okay, so there are a few characteristics to blockchain. First of all, decentralized, as in there's no central authority that governs this network. Okay, and it's immutable. What I mean by immutable, as in you cannot change the data. So if, let's say, Bank of America, I keep saying Bank of America, or Amazon. Let's say Amazon executives want to kind of change like some purchasing history, or they want to change some data. They can do that because they own the central database. But in blockchain community, it's immutable, as in you cannot change the data that has been recorded. Another thing is disintermediated. What that means is that we don't need a third party. It's kind of a result of being decentralized. Instead of having a central authority, we have a decentralized network. Therefore, we don't need a third party in order to mediate between transactions of two different people. So if you have any question, just let me know. Anytime, just speak up, okay? And also, it's very secure. It's called tamper-proof, and also it's very resistant to hacking. I'm going to explain in a bit why it's so secure, especially public blockchain. And also it's efficient because you don't have to keep the database like many different organizations don't have to keep their own database. You can just like collect it in one platform and have it distributed real time and updated in real time. And as a result, this is transnational. It's quite unique if you think about it. Actually, like we think because of internet, like our interactions are very transnational, but actually there's a high cost in doing business, like, you know, overseas, or just doing any transactions overseas. For instance, let's say from the US, I want to send money to Philippines. I have a couple of ways to do that. First is using SWIFT, and it's a very complicated process. It takes days in order for the transaction to be confirmed, like processed and actually distributed and executed. It takes a long time. And also another way you can do is Western Union. It's pretty much same thing as SWIFT. It takes a long time. It's costly. Or you can use PayPal or MoneyGram, but all these things like cost a lot of money. But if you use blockchain, and if the technology improves well enough, then you can send money from the US and from the US and to Philippines instantly without very, very minimal cost. So that was an example. So let's quickly talk about how blockchain works. Like what the freak is blockchain? So what happens is first, like a user requests for a transaction. So for instance, like Aaron wants to send 1 Bitcoin to Sarah. And when that request is received, what happens is a block is created with the data. In the block, there's a data. of the transaction, like the date and time of transaction that is going to happen, and it has hash. I'm going to explain what hash is in a bit, but this is basically how blocks look like. So it has the transaction data right here, and there's a hash. This is basically a cryptography. This is a way to encrypt your message, your block. And also this is a way to connect between two blocks. So if you look at it, why we call this a blockchain? Because these are blocks connected through a chain. Then what does the chain represent? Basically, these blocks are connected through something called hash. What hash does, it codifies, it encrypts the data into using mathematics, you're encrypting it. And if one characteristic of the blockchain is, if you look at block 1, there's previous hash and current hash. If you look at block 2, there is block 2's hash and the previous hash. That's why it's a chain, because block 2 has the previous chain here, 4FT678. 4FT678. Unless these two matches, you cannot call this a block that's chained together. So I'm going to explain what hash is in a bit, but what I want you to understand right now is these blocks are created when the transaction is requested, and these blocks are chained through something called hash. That's all I need you to understand for now. And when the block is created, it needs to be updated to the people in the network, right? Because we said any transaction data, the data is not stored in the central database, but it's distributed to everyone. It's distributed to everyone and it's decentralized. So this block, the transaction data that has transaction data and in an encrypted form, is broadcasted to everyone real time, to all the node operators. You can just think of you can just think of that as a participant of the network. And what these participants do with their computers is that they validate this transaction. Wait, is this valid? Is this block valid? Is this really truthful? They validate it. And in order to do that, in public blockchain, we incentivize people to, in order for them to keep validating and provide their computer power, what they do is they provide incentives by giving cryptocurrency. That's where cryptocurrency comes in. Like, this is where cryptocurrency comes in. In order to incentivize these people, the miners, the node operators, or the network participants, I would call that. In order to provide them incentives, they incentivize them with something called coins. And with these coins, these operators continue to mine and validate these transactions and make this entire network go on. I don't know if that makes sense. And once it is validated, for Bitcoin specifically, it takes about 10 minutes. And once that's validated, it is added to the chain. Added to the chain. How is it added to the chain? It validates the hash value. Not only this hash value, but whether the previous hash value whether this block has the previous hash value. And and then when the block is added to the network, what happens is the transaction gets verified and executed. Is there any question before I explain what hash function is?
Daddy.
Hey, sorry, a quick question. So this is like super technical, but I get why you have to go through this. Is it I guess two questions going back to like your earlier slide. So what is the key point of all this? It basically allows you to, like you said, remove a central authority, number one, and then number two, unlike the other issues with a centralized database, it sounds like this is unhackable because it's based on cryptography and math, right? Is that the right way to think about it? Definitely.
So maybe I can go to, before explaining hash functions, maybe we can explain why it's so secure. So let's like the question that comes up that might come up with in your brain is probably like, can blockchain network get hacked? And theoretically, it's possible, but it's nearly impossible. Why? Because let's say there's this hacker, and let's say David Shao, and he wants to hack the block B, okay? And there are blocks already chained using hash functions A through F. In order to hack, let's say like maybe he wanted to hack information that says Kita sent 1 Bitcoin to David Chow, but then instead of 1 Bitcoin, he wants to hack it and make it into 100 Bitcoins, and so that he can get rich. Okay, let's say he wanted to make that happen. If he does that, in order to successfully hack this network, what he has to do is like many steps. So first of all, not only he has to hack this block B, he has to hack every single block here, B through F, and make sure that each block is hashed correctly and chained correctly. And and then what he also has to do is he has to finish validating this block G before anyone else. That requires a lot of computing power and luck. And not only that, he has to do one more thing, which is not only he has to do this for his own, but he has to do that for more than 50% of the entire node operators. And let me show you a quick example. Like this is the Bitcoin. So this is the computing power comparison. This is how much computing power that exists in blockchain network, like in Bitcoin. However, in order to be more than 50%, you need to have computing power that is more than the sum of the top 500 supercomputers. And let me know if there's an individual who owns this much of computing power. And there is probably nobody. So that's why people are saying this is almost impossible to hack. And the reason, and Eddie, as Eddie mentioned here, the reason why I wanted to kind of like explain this process is because the reason why we decentralize it instead of having it in one central point of contact, the reason why we want to decentralize this information and also we want to encrypt it using these hash functions is because we want to make it a secure, unhackable network, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I have a question about the security of the blockchain. If it's not centralized, that means that individuals actually work for someone to validate the blocks, right?
Wait, say that one more time. Can you repeat that? Sorry.
The people who validate the blocks,
Yeah.
they work for someone, right? So doesn't that make it centralized too?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think sorry, who was it? Was it Jigger?
Yeah.
Yes. Jigger, what he's saying is basically there could be a centralized mining power. So what he's mentioning is what the Bitcoin is trying to do is decentralize the information and have people, whoever wants to be part of this node operating process, validate the transactions. But what if there are people who have significant amount of computing power? Like for instance, like Chinese, there are a lot of Chinese operators who have a lot of computers in Finland, like in a cold environment, and all they do is just mining. And isn't this kind of vulnerable to mining centralization and have them kind of change the blocks? As far as I know, I don't think there was anyone who successfully forged a block yet. And what you just mentioned is actually a weakness that has been raised by the experts and stuff. But what people think is instead of having it in one centralized point of validation, for instance, one company, letting one company or just the government try to validate and process and update the ledger or the information, it's probably more trustworthy if we share it among all of the people. So I think that's the idea, and what you just mentioned is definitely a good point, I would say. So I'm not saying this is perfect. Nothing under the sun is perfect.
I'd add one point to that. I'd say, I mean, Jigger brings up a good point. If you look at the Bitcoin network, you do have ASIC miners, which are application-specific integrated circuits. And so because of that, as Kita mentioned, you have a lot of Chinese miners that are centralizing that hash power. There are other technologies that are ASIC resistant that are basically solving for that. I mean, case in point, David Shao was mining some of that for my company previously. But I guess what I'd say is, going back to Kita's initial example of Isaac digging for wells, if I guess the key tool to basically mine or dig was a pickaxe, but let's just say that the ground changed from dirt to I don't know, sand or metal, like all of a sudden, then that pickaxe, that ASIC chip is no longer relevant. And because in the blockchain, it's just a matter of changing the code, you could actually develop protocols that would be resistant to a 51% attack. So we shouldn't get too wonky around it, but it's a great point. But there are ways to kind of get around that by updating.
Definitely. I think the limitations are being overcome just over time. So I think there was one more question, if I remember correctly.
No, I guess it was me, and I guess it's kind of answered. I was just, well, my question was basically same as Jigger had, how exactly the blockchain validates each other, and if there's like, what if like 51% of the computers are overwritten, and how in that case it will like assure the safety of the information?
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. But again, I think what people are thinking is it's better than centralized, having just one person or one organization to kind of have control. And also, as I said here, it's almost nearly impossible to have that much computing power, over 51% of computing power of blockchain network. So let's quickly talk. I don't know if I should get into details, but I think it's important to understand what hash is, because that's what makes the chain part of the blocks. So let me quickly show you so this is what blockchain, this is the cryptography that blockchain uses. So let me share. Yeah, can you guys see this? Can you guys see the screen? Okay. So this is called SHA-256. So here, when I type anything, it's going to codify, it's going to encrypt my message into 64 letters. And what I want to let you know is the 64 letters is unique. There's no other code that exists on Earth other than this. So for instance, let's say I write Kite sent 1 Bitcoin to David Shao. And you see this like 64 letters here, right? This is the code that goes into each block. And what's crazy is I'm going to change just one letter, not even like a sentence, one letter into Kite sent 1 Bitcoin to David Shao to Kite sent 2 Bitcoin to David Shao. And what do you see here? It's completely different, right? And what's unique about this hash function is non-invertible. What I mean by that is you can get this code from this, but there's no way you can use this to get the original message. Does that make sense? So that's what's cool about this hash function. Again, there's a way to get what hash function does is translates this language here, this sentence into this code, 64-letter code. However, there's no way you can get from this to this. That's what's really cool about hash function and why this is so useful. Because what if you go on a Bitcoin and you can read, like you can just take this code and then just like put it in like Bitcoin translator, like SHA-256 hash inverse hash generator, and then get this message. Like that'll be too much, right? We don't want that information to be revealed. So that's why we use this hash function, and this hash function is basically what connects each block. So block 2 has its own hash, it's just an encrypted data of the time and who's part of the transactions and all that kinds of data that's codified and encrypted into a hash value. And block 2 has a previous hash, block 1's hash rate, and that's how we, this 4FT678, that's how we know these two blocks are connected. So as long as you understand that, I think you're pretty much, you have the grounds to understand how blockchain works. Is there any other question about hash function or? Yeah, this is just an example. I just changed, expression mark to question mark, and these are just two completely different hash function. Okay, I hope that's understood. So it's really difficult to hack, and that's why it's very secure. And here, that's why I wanted to mention about secure. We explained about everything, and immutable part kind of goes with the security part too, because let's, like, as I said, like when hacker wanted to change the information B, like he has to do it, all of it, and before everyone validates G, he has to validate G first, and he has to convince more than 50% of the block operators. Okay, so I'm almost done, bear with me. So public, there are three types of blockchain. So first type of blockchain is what's mostly widely known, like Bitcoin or Ethereum. You guys will receive by the end of this course, if you send me your Bitcoin wallet address, then you will receive these coins, like either Bitcoin or Ethereum, based on what kind of wallet you have. But in the one thing that's cool about public blockchain is that everyone has the access to operate as a node operator. Private, there's a second way or a second type of blockchain, which is called private, but I think this is like a heretic version of blockchain because it's still very centralized. It's just using good part, like just using the efficiency part of blockchain, but it's still very centralized. So only the invited people has the access to the network, okay? And hybrid is basically, it's just a mix of these two worlds, and they take the best of the two worlds. So at this time, I just want to kind of watch two videos of how blockchain is being utilized in our real life. And let me see, let's see if it's possible to share computer sound. There. Wait, why is this not working?
It's not hard to say that blockchain
Can you guys hear?
technology is one of the biggest innovations of this century. Whenever we think of it, we automatically associate it with cryptocurrencies, primarily Bitcoin. However, that notion is starting to change rapidly. More and more people are seeing that decentralization and transparency have the potential to shake multiple industries to the core. So let's get right to it. In this video, we're going to explore the first of 4 real-world use cases of blockchain technology. First up, the food industry. Probably not the first thing that comes to mind when you think of blockchain applications, is it? But the fact is that many big shopping chains like Walmart are teaming up with IBM to incorporate blockchain in their food management system. But why would they be doing this? What if we were to make each and every step of the process, from the time the food grows on the farm to the time it reaches the marketplace, transparent? What happens if the blockchain gets implemented to maintain food records? Remember that the blockchain is an open ledger and the data in it is open to everyone, so there's no central authority taking charge of the records. This means that it would be possible for consumers to track the origin of all the food they purchase. From the moment your salmon was brought to shore to when it was laid out on the counter in front of you, you could trace where it was caught, when it was transported, and how long it's been in the store. That would be pretty amazing. Walmart has already done 2 test runs with IBM, one with pork and the other with mangoes. They used Hyperledger Fabric, a blockchain originally built by IBM and now housed under the Linux Foundation's Hyperledger group. If you want to learn more about Hyperledger, you should definitely check out our introduction. We even have complete Hyperledger training over on blockgeeks.com. Anyway, let's get back to the food. Frank Yanis, Vice President of Food Safety at Walmart, had this to say about the results of the trials, as told to Fortune. "We were so encouraged that we really quickly started reaching out to other suppliers and retailers. As the blockchain gets integrated into the food industry, it will make the whole process more safe. There are many advantages to a transparent blockchain-based food system, the largest of which is being greater accountability. If every consumer can see where and when each item of food came from, there's no risk of receiving old or unsafe food. Consumers can also hold organizations accountable for large amounts of wasted food, as the numbers will be readily available. Being the first major shopping chain to bring this kind of transparency and accountability to your consumers would be a major competitive advantage. I mean, where would you rather shop? Somewhere that verifiably provides the freshest foods from the best locations with minimal waste, or somewhere that you just have to take their word for it? I know what my pick would be. Thanks for watching. Remember, this
Yep, that's I think today's young business people's message was also about this, and this is one way.
is only
that,
part 1.
One way that blockchain could be used, and another way that's used is in real estate. Let's just quickly watch this.
Real estate is incredibly complicated. Ask anyone who's ever bought land or a home. It's time-consuming, complex, risky, and above all else, it's expensive. Home inspectors, real estate agents, banks, local governments, everyone needs to check and sign off on your transaction before it can get done, and all of them take a cut. In the last part of our series, we're going to quickly outline how blockchain technology can make the process of buying and selling real estate much, much easier. When buying real estate, the rules can be daunting. They vary wildly depending on what city, state, or country you're looking to buy in, what type of property you're hoping to buy, and how you're going to buy it. All of these complexities and regulations require multiple middlemen to get involved. You're going to be paying a large cut at every turn because it's just too complex for most people to navigate alone. That's where the blockchain comes in. If we were to codify local, provincial, and national housing rules and regulations on the blockchain, smart contracts could be used to drastically simplify the process. A prospective seller would simply send their location, desired price, and some other ownership information to the contract. Then, pulling from the database of rules and regulations around the sale of real estate in the seller's location, the smart contract could generate contracts, deeds, tax records, anything required to make a sale of the house instantly. A prospective buyer could then meet with the seller, agree on pricing and terms, and then send their digital signature to the contract, verifying their purchase and updating all the documents as required. Now, this would require some back-end work having provable and verifiable identities on the blockchain to ensure that the transactors are who they say they are, and there can be no disputes with regards to signing. Similarly, the land would need to be securely and clearly registered on the blockchain to ensure easy transfer of ownership. We'll delve a little bit into that here, but we have an excellent workshop over on blockgeeks.com that talks more about. India has looked into blockchain as a possible solution to complicated land registry problems, as they have many issues with property fraud. In 2013, New Delhi alone had 181 reported cases of property fraud, while Mumbai came a close second at 173 cases. To counter this issue, the governments of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana have partnered up with Swedish startup Chromaway to put their land registry on the blockchain. One of the many interesting innovations they could be bringing is the introduction of cryptographically secure digital fingerprints. It might work like this. A landowner hashes the geo-coordinates of their land, along with a description. This hash is then tied to the owner's ID, and the result is hashed again and added to the blockchain. Since hashes are always a unique value, every plot of land and landowner will have a unique ID when linked together. Plus, because of the blockchain's immutability, no one can tamper with the records. This would create a system of verifiably owned land that could easily be transferred, bought, and sold in a cryptographically secure manner. Thanks for watching this series on real-world.
The slide thing is hard to operate. There we go. Yeah, it's just we've only looked at two industries that can be affected through blockchain, but it's you can name any industry, and that industry has a potential to be revolutionized through blockchain. For instance, let's talk about healthcare. Let's talk about healthcare and insurance, and I'll just be done with this. When we go to the hospital, when we try to receive a treatment from a hospital, what happens is you go to the hospital, you provide your ID and your insurance card, and you fill out all the paperwork and receive treatment. And after that, what happens? You have to take care of your hospital bills with your insurance company, or the insurance company does it for you. But with your insurance company, you have to like provide like where you got your service from, and you get billed. And it's this process is very, very complicated. But what if the insurance companies, the hospitals, and the patients are in the blockchain community, that when you receive the service from the hospital, in real time, that is updated to the insurance company, and there's no paper to be filled out. There's nothing that you need to do. The insurance company automatically disperses the hospital bills to the hospital. So that's one way. We've seen agriculture, the supply chain management, retail, and banking too. I think I briefly mentioned before, but sending money overseas, that can actually be a lot faster and efficient. And yeah, so, and one thing, the government and public records too, like when you try, let's say you're a social security receiver or a food stamp receiver, right? What do you have to do? It's actually really complicated to get food stamp. But what if you have a digital ID and you, as soon as you go and you provide them with like a QR code or like your digital ID, and then they automatically know how much income you earn and whether you qualify, and then automatically disperse the amount that you are eligible for just instantly. Even with like coronavirus too, like let's say like, you know, right now, what do you have to do? You have to fill out a tax return, and you have to report to the IRS and get the stimulus package, you know. However, the government, when people are in the blockchain community, the government can instantly, based on using smart contracts, they can just instantly disperse the funds, and it's very efficient. So it seems like it's an amazing technology. Why don't we just like make it happen and just make our world better? Actually, this technology is a double-edged sword. Yes, it's transparent and it's traceable, as in like these every record is recorded in the public blockchain. However, as you read in the reading, it can be used as a tool, and it opens up an array of another new surveillance economy and give more power and control over the central authority. That's ironic, right? Because it was meant to initially to decentralize the information and give ownership to the people. However, it's actually making this world a more controlled and of a surveillance economy. Second one is decentralization. That seems like a really good idea. However, there are also problems that are arising. So for instance, because it's decentralized, it's really hard, and it's like transnational. Like it's decentralized and transnational. So whenever you use or send Bitcoins in order to like fund like a terrorist activity or money, sorry, that's actually the next one. But then when you try to send money for, let's say like you use Bitcoin in order to avoid taxes or and participate in illegal gambling, like there's no way, like there's no way, because the information is not, your data is not recorded in the central authorities database, like for instance, the government, right? And also anonymity is a big problem. Each person who participates in the blockchain, there's no name attached to it. You're just a code. You're just a code, and this code transacts with another code, and it's really hard to figure out, like at least in public blockchain, it's really hard to figure out like who sent money to whom for which kind of activity. this problem is already a difficult case to prove, like in our real world with our current currencies and stuff like that. It's already hard to prove. Like lawyers have to go through like so many days trying to make a point of contact and prove that somebody is trying to use this money in order to fund terrorism or like for human trafficking or some illegal activities. So I wanted to let you know about these double-edged sword, and this is, and I want to kind of introduce you to this new patent that has been approved like a few months ago. Deacon Eddie posted on Young Adult and I think like Church Cut Talk, and what basically what this is actually quite scary if you think about it. What it is basically right now we've talked about mining, right? Using computing power, like having a lot of computers validating transactions and being incentivized with Bitcoins or Ethereum or Ether, things like that. But what this patent allows you to do is your activity on the web, like your internet usage, like you're like looking through photos on Instagram or watching an ad or any kind of your brain activity, your body physical activity can be used in mining purposes and create cryptocurrency. And I want you to think about the implication of that. So in order for you to be able to do that, you have to be connected through a sensor. Like you have to attach like some sort of like, wires and onto your brain and stuff like that. And then whenever you browse on the internet, like the sensor senses your brain activity and your body activity and uses that as a computer power in order to generate cryptocurrency. But who in the world is going to attach like all kinds of wires on their brains while they are on the web or while on their phone, or just like go outside and with all the things like attached on your brain or on your head? Nobody's going to do that. But what is coming with it is a chipping. So microchipping. So when you're microchipped on your forehead, it can actually sense your brain activities. And using that brain activity, you can, while you're watching YouTube videos, while you're watching ads, it senses the brain signals and brain activities and uses that as a mining power. And that's the patent, that's the technology that they invented, Microsoft. And if you think about it, YouTube is already addicting. YouTube is already so enticing, like so many contents, and Netflix is so enticing. Like you're already hooked into it without any incentives. But then what if your internet activities are not only for your personal pleasure, but also there's an economic incentive to it? What if you can earn money while you're watching YouTube? Like what if you can earn money, like coins, while you're doing your usual online activities? And this part, what I'm about to tell you, this is the end of the lecture, but then the video that you're about to watch requires a little bit of imagination. So it's going to be about brain chipping and how close it is. And using that, how I just watch this, and I can you guys hear? No? Okay. Why is this not working? No sound?
No sound.
What? Hold on. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Come on, there's a flow. Can't stop it. I apologize. I don't know what's wrong with my computer. So let me just turn on the YouTube. Um, Sorry, guys. There we go. Why? What? Still no sound, right?
Elon
Is there sound?
It worked. It worked.
Hold on. Let me share the computer sound.
Musk's next project isn't a car or a spaceship or a solar panel. The executive's latest startup is called Neuralink, which focuses on the goal of implanting chips into human brains and also connecting brains to computers. Here's what Elon Musk said at a conference in California about the technology last night.
This, I think, has a very good purpose, which is to cure important diseases and ultimately to help secure humanity's future as a civilization relative to AI. This, I think, has tremendous potential, and we hope to have this aspirationally in a human patient before the end of next year. So this is not far.
Not far, he says. The implantation of the neuron, the implantation of the neuron-sized threads requires the use of a special robot, but Musk said it's a minimally invasive surgery. So Thornton, I'm sure that means you'll be getting one soon.
I'm gonna get a few for the kids with my 23andMe kit.
Naturally,
surprise.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the disease thing sounds great. That seems very awesome for humanity. But I am definitely thinking that, for me, if I'm Elon, chips and brains drive the car, car's automated, your Tesla is going to appreciate. Problem solved. All you have to do is get people to put chips in their brains, and Teslas will appreciate and value like he promised.
I mean, there's a lot of use cases.
I love that analysis.
There's a lot of use cases.
This is how you got to think. I think Elon. That's how you got to get.
Yeah. I mean, I wish he would get those self-driving cars going. I mean, that would be an achievement in itself. But yes, if he's dealing with people who have neurological diseases, spinal cord injuries, and they can be connected through this device, and it can help them, then great. But if Elon Musk is coming for my brain, forget it. I definitely am not interested.
I mean, there are a lot of people working on that too, right? Specifically when we're talking about trying to figure out how the brain can send messages to a computer or to a machine, in terms of people like you mentioned, Sabeel, who have mobility.
But yeah, that's, I think that you kind of get the message, but yeah, so it's not very far. And if you think about how, where the people who don't fear God are taking this technology to, and try what kind of world that they're trying to make. If you think about it, it can be scary. So, however, the reason why we're doing this course and the reason why we gather and try to learn about this technology is to not do that, but really, while they're doing that, we want to use this for healing. So my question is, how would you like to use this technology? Like what do you see, what the flow of the world, and how can we, as a Christian, as a child of God, as God-fearing people, how should we live? I think that's the end of my lecture, and thank you so much.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Before answering the question, you know, like I just want to go back to the beginning of the lecture where we talk about blockchain, and the whole purpose of that is to decentralize, right? Not have like central entity to control it. And I wonder if that's universally true, because I also see that you also cover private blockchain, where Microsoft developed their own blockchain application. And I know that Amazon also have blockchain implementation. They just got a patent for logistic for the supply chain purpose to track their seller and the origin of the goods to all the way to the hand of the consumers and all that. So they also control their own private blockchain. So I was wondering, ultimately, this technology is there, but will it be a possibility where it also go back to the hands of a few in terms of the end application, like the end goal?
So your question is, will it actually, as opposed to its original intention,
the technology will be also, because all these big companies are not dumb, right? They're also inventing as people are inventing somewhere else.
That's right.
They will ultimately adopt the technology, and since we're already inseparable with all the Amazon, the Google, and how is that making this thing, quote unquote, truly decentralized?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because I think when you see the world right now, how the world is adopting this technology, it's really not this. How we visibly really see how this blockchain is used and how it's being implemented is here, private. In many cases, these are like how it got famous, right? However, the true applications and true implementation is taking place here, private. And what's private is efficient. Like, it's very efficient, because you don't need like that many people to validate the transactions. You only require only certain selected few who are invited, who are permissioned to have this access and operate. So it's very centralized, and only and when you see businesses, as you've mentioned, like Microsoft or Amazon, they don't want to decentralize their company's information, so they only take what's useful for their company in centralizing and making their business processes more efficient. So you're right. Like, as opposed to its original intention, it's making it even more to centralize the economy, and that's why, like, I think this is the point. Like, it's really ironic how this blockchain, and there was an opposition against the central authority, has turned into something that is used as a bait. Like, they give you, we'll give you ownership to your data, and we will incentivize you for having your own data. However, what that actually does is it makes even more number of people to be part of the platform, and that's easier for these people to have control over these people. And one example is ID 2020. Sorry, yeah, go ahead. I think you were trying to say.
Yeah, sorry for interrupt. I just want to say, like, this is my own opinion, but whoever else have the knowledge, please feel free to express.
Yeah, if Eddie is there.
Yeah, Eddie is there. So I'm thinking, like, blockchain is a very, very good tool for us to have more control. So, for example, like, financial system and all that. But I think it also gives more control for the tech companies. So I think it's like the trend is tech companies taking more power away from the financial system and the government. Do you think this is a correct view or way to think about it? Yeah.
That's a good question. I think I'll maybe open up to the floor how they think about it.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, Sharon, yeah. Shao.
My question is, blockchain implementation is good for public, right? And give us more control, but it also gives more control for the tech companies to take more power away from the financial system and the government.
So my perspective is that Amazon, Google, they're all like rolling out their own blockchain implementations. I'd say there's a reason why China and the US governments focus on central bank digital currencies. As Kita mentioned, the tech is actually really, really like interesting and it's efficient. And so the only question is will it be centralized or decentralized? And I'd say Kita's question, which is up on the screen, I think it's the most relevant question. But underlying that is the idea of or I guess what underpins all of this desire for this technology is Genesis 3:6 and 11. It's this idea that everybody that doesn't have Christ with the covenant wants to move away and be their own masters and be their own gods. And this technology actually allows not 2-3 people to do it, but billions of people to organize themselves, but without trusting one another, and create their own system and platform. Can Google and Facebook figure it out? I'd say so, yes. But like if I think about Facebook, they're looking at launching their own digital currency. Imagine if I could send. I actually just sent some money to a friend in Korea this past week. It took like 5 days. It cost a ton of money to do so. What if? And I don't use Facebook, but what if I just created a Facebook account and was able to transfer the money to them instantaneously? That'd be phenomenal. Governments would not be happy about that. But there's a reason why Zuckerberg was in front of the Senate testifying, because they're going to clamp down on that. I think what the remnants have to be aware of, what is on the horizon. Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. He's anonymous. It's probably more than one person. Some folks have guessed that it's probably up to 10 different developers. But this anonymous person has created a blockchain-based currency which has permeated the entire globe. And before, about 10 years ago, it was a hobby. Today, and I'm speaking from an investor's perspective, the Fidelities of the world, the large institutional investors that I speak with, they're focused on this. And the Goldman Sachses of the world, they're putting money into this. And so this thing that was anonymously created and kind of thrown at the world may I'm not going to say it's going to upend governments, but it's going to have a place in the world that the remnants enter into. I talk with Sharon, and I'd imagine she probably owns more Bitcoin than she does stocks. And so that's the reality that the remnants are going to grow up in. It's completely decentralized. It doesn't require trusting anybody. And as people of the covenant, the one person that we trust in is God. And if you can mathematically or using cryptography remove a central authority that is normally trusted, then you basically have the Tower of Babel at that point. It's that one uniform language that in this case it's math, which unifies everybody, and nobody in their right mind would ever imagine that the language could ever be changed until God intervened. In this case, people look at math, 2 + 2 will always equal 4. That will never change. That's math. And people trust that. They put their faith in that, and they've built this blockchain system on top of that belief. And so for the first time in recent modern history, you basically have the ability to build something apart from any central authority. And it's the same thing that happened during the time of the Tower of Babel. And again, people are placing their faith in a false idol. In this case, it's math, which seems unbreakable. It seems unhackable. Blockchain developers will say math is the only thing that God cannot hack. It's unhackable. Not even God could break it. And that's what they thought 4,000 years ago. They said our language is the same. It's unhackable. And it's a very scary time. And this is just one of the technologies that are part of the fourth IR that the remnants have to be aware of. But yeah, I don't think it's going to disrupt the tech companies today. IBM and all these guys, they've built Hyperledger and all these other centralized blockchain-based applications. but going forward, the drive, the core Genesis 3611 drive of the world is to remove all authority. Like, look at the protests right now. They want to remove the governments. They want to remove the tech companies, and it's going to move more and more towards, I feel, like these cryptographically secured blockchain-based applications.
I have a
I had a question about the social contract. So, Kita, you showed us the video about the social contract and like how blockchain technology can be used for real estate and for verifying identities and stuff like that. And then you showed us the video about the Neuralink, the brain chip. And so I was wondering, you know, like, who is this technology really for? And if maybe one of the like requirements of verifying the identity was through technology or it was through Neuralink, then is blockchain, if, I mean, it's like all hypothetical, but if that was the way to really verify your identity was through Neuralinks, then maybe like we would have no choice but to get those kind of brain chips, especially like when it becomes more common. And I was thinking about blockchain technology and like I'm not doubting the scalability of it, but it's like I was really thinking about the usability, like really how feasible is it for common people, like very, very common people to use blockchain technology, and like what group does this technology exclude? Do you guys have a like do you guys have any answers regarding that?
Yeah, I think the killer app. I mean, we talked about this earlier this year, but the killer app, in my mind, it's probably a web browser, and that's the reason why we talked about the Brave browser and the BAT token before. I'd say everybody, whenever they want to surf the net or get information, you have to open up a browser, and it's probably Chrome or Internet Explorer. I'd say going back to Kita's lecture, if you could set that up, and there it is right there. If you could do whatever you're gonna do anyways, and not get paid ads, basically own your data and earn money for that. I feel like this is gonna be the first entryway for most people into blockchain-based technologies. If you look at this, the great thing about this is there's no hash algorithm here. There's no blockchain. There's no weird math and cryptography. It's just a web browser, and you're going to do what you're going to do. But behind it, underlying that is decentralized technology.
I have a question. Actually, I think I should have asked this question earlier. It's quite very basic question. When Gita started the presentation, I asked that, Amazon, when they do those businesses, they receive some like a shipping fee, or even the Bank of America, they receive a service fee, right? We say that like a Facebook, they just provide their business for connecting each other, but basically they have to earn money, right? So through the Facebook providing some those services, they earn some money in other ways, right? So so actually blockchain, it's good. It's to secure our information, and then everything is good. But the thing is that how do they make money? So what I'm saying is maybe are they called like a miner, or the Eddie said there's a blockchain developer who validate the like information, who validate the data, who's controlling, managing those systems. How do they make money? Actually, without any like a financial benefit, no one actually make those systems, right? So I don't think that those people who created those systems, they get some financial benefit from those systems, right? So the people most concerned about is, I think, what if they monopolize those systems later, right? Because it's not controlled by the government, and and then only few people who knows those technology can manage those systems. Then actually I was very interested about the blockchain, but my question was why do they make those things? Only for, secure their information and then make a system much better? And how do they, what if they control, those systems financially? For example, very simply, let's say that only Amazon is the only company who's providing those systems. If they increase the service fee higher, no one can control them, right? And then Bank of America or like Microsoft as well. So that's why government make a regulation not for them to monopolize those, services, right? So how do they make? So my clear question is, why do they make those system fundamentally? How do they make money? So what if they control the system later, financially?
Okay, so I think I understand that you have that kind of question. I also did too. But then so the point that I really wanted to make initially, that's why I really emphasized the third party system. And so we're so used to it, like ever since the civilization, like the beginning of civilization, having a third party, and like we needed a third party. And as Eddie put it really well, that was the cost of trust. And if you think of it in this way, it's so easy to think that, oh, like how does this, how do they make money? Like what's the revenue stream? Like what's the revenue source? However, in this blockchain, what's different is that we don't need a third party who needs to make revenue. So this is a platform, it's a protocol where people gather, and even you, like Haejung, you can be a miner. You can be a node operator if you want. Like you can download it on your computer and you can start collecting money, like Bitcoin. You can earn Bitcoin if your computer graphic card is good enough. So it's not about a certain organization. It's not even like these blockchain developers, they don't have control over this. That's the thing about public blockchain. All they can do is continuously update, like so that the program can be more scalable, as in improve like the number of transactions, or make it more smooth, or like debug and things like that. But then they don't have control over people's money. They don't have control over people's transactions. So there's no need for them to earn. There's no third-party organization that needs to earn money, if that makes sense.
I will say this.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, that's actually really interesting to hear from Kite, because he's an econ guy. But I know he knows this, so I'm going to just basically say what he already knows. But Haejung, to answer your question, every 10 minutes there is an economic incentive. Every 10 minutes, the blockchain network provides about, at the market price today, it gives about $60,000 in an economic incentive to basically set up a mining. And it's based on computer code, and it's immutable, as Kita mentioned. Nobody can change that. But yeah, why would anybody want to participate in it? I get why Amazon would do it. They basically get to charge money or take a fee. But for the blockchain network, or any cryptocurrency network that's designed correctly, at least for Bitcoin, every 10 minutes, whoever gets that block reward, whoever confirms the transactions based on the hashing algorithm, gets $58,000. That's a pretty big economic incentive to participate in a network. And so, does that require a central authority? No. Like as Kita said, you could set one up, I could set one up, and we can participate in the network because the code, because the cryptography ensures that we're all operating under the same rules. It's obviously different from an Amazon. An Amazon basically stands in the middle. They're kind of like the head pastor or like the teacher at Remnant Day, with all these like young remnants who are blaming each other for different things. But there's that referee. In this case, that's what Amazon is. We're basically all trusting Amazon with our data, with their ability to ensure that a transaction will go through, and they basically take a fee for that. We don't see it, but their suppliers, the folks that sell on their platform, they take 30% of whatever they sell. And so through this technology, you're able to basically remove those central authorities.
Yeah, definitely. Like I wish I could help you understand. Like, so pre-blockchain era, the economic incentive has to be in the companies that make transactions happen, like pre-blockchain era. But post-blockchain era, like after when we have blockchain, the economic incentives must be given to people who operate, like who allow this transaction to happen, which are the node operators. So people who contribute their computing powers, they need the economic incentive, not like a central third party like Amazon or Bank of America. I really wish I could help understand.
Yeah, I think I can give an example real life. So like, you know, mining, I have done it myself too. So all you need is a computer and you install some software on your computer. You let the computer to do the calculation to approve all this transaction of other people's. So like, let's say Kita send Hejong $100 and that needs to be approved somewhere. It can be anybody's, you know, everybody who participate. I can just turn on my computer because I want to contribute to this trust system. I turn on my computers for 7 days a week and 24 hours a day. And all I lose is some electricity cost, but I get rewarded by approving your transaction. So this is basically how the system works. I contribute some electricity power and I get some coins. And those coins can be.
Let me just share this real quick. Like, if you guys think about, and Kita covered this, if you think about like the way that the internet was typically managed. How do I do this?
It's being recorded, but they will cut out this part.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Let's just. So if you guys look at this, do you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the internet today, right? We basically have, whenever anybody logs into the website, it says https://. That's what's called the TCP/IP protocol. It's just this free, publicly available code that governs how we surf the internet. And if you wanted to send email, it's called an SMTP protocol, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. And so all these things basically were generated and developed for free about 20 or 30 years ago. And then what you had these amazing companies, as Kita mentioned, like Google, like Amazon, which built these like websites. And what they were able to do was build amazing applications on top. And they basically sold your data and they earned a fee. As Hejong was like, you know, they're taking a delivery fee for that. Yeah, that's what they did, because all you have to do is go to their website, you can buy everything. On the right, this is what the blockchain allows you to do. For the first time in history, the protocol itself, the TCP/IP or whatever it is, can actually retain the value. So you as an individual, if you're using the Brave browser, like Kita uses, or anything else, that thing called a token or a cryptocurrency, it allows you to actually capture that value yourself. And so for the first time, the values can be retained at the protocol layer. And the applications that are built up on top, there's some like cool stuff, but you're no longer going to have like Amazon and Google becoming trillion-dollar companies that basically extract all the money. For the first time, because of this code, because of the math and the cryptography underneath it, you can basically have no central authority, and any user or person that's on that platform can more or less retain that value. And that's the key point about blockchain. It's removing a central authority. It's like the Tower of Babel. You're removing God, and because there's this one common denominator, it allows you to basically operate and trust one another. It allows you to, for the first time, make a name for yourself since Genesis 11. That's what this technology enables you.
Thank you for your answer. I could understand a little bit more, but not fully because I don't have much more information about basic information about that. If you don't mind, could you recommend us kind of books or like more video clips more, explain more something about basic things? Yeah, it will be more helpful for us to understand. For me, actually. Yeah.
Definitely. One like quick example, one benefit, I guess, like to Hyejung, because Hyejung writes stories, and if she publishes it through Amazon, they take away a lot of money, like 40%, I think, based on what I heard. But if you, as Eddie mentioned, if you are part of the blockchain protocol and you have transactions take place there in that environment instead of the web browser like Amazon, there's barely any transaction fee. So it's very advantageous, and that's why there's a value to this blockchain. It allows to remove the central authority, as Eddie mentioned. I hope this, you guys understand this, because this is very central to this blockchain technology. And one personal testimony is that like I had no idea what blockchain and like this Bitcoin, like Ethereum, like anything like this, like until like a year ago. And I've met Eddie, and Eddie works in like blockchain industry, like blockchain digital asset investment company. And like I've been like meeting him at church and just like listening to things like that, and just like it really opened the way to see the world like in a different lens. So that's why like right now, like I know like you guys might be tired, but it's really important that you guys are here and really kind of like eager to learn and try to understand like what this is, because this is really the flow of the world and where it's going. And people who are behind this, all this is going to use it in order to make this a better, or in their term, like a paradise in their own language. So I'm really thankful for this like internship sort of conveying information and sharing forum. So if you want to engage and ask questions freely, and if you want to learn, please speak up so that we can give you more information. I think Eddie, David, me, and Chanyoung, we all have much to share with you. So please utilize this time.
Can I say something? Sorry.
Sure.
Okay. So the only thing I should have asked this question a little like in the beginning. It's about blockchain and privacy and security mostly. I'm not sure because I heard a lot. I really don't have any business using a credit card yet, but obviously my parents do. But I heard a lot about like eBay. I'm pretty sure it's other people selling stuff, and it's really how insecure it is, and how sometimes your items don't come, or people are taking advantage of everybody's like credit cards. I heard a lot of stories about that, so I don't know if that like lines up together or connects with blockchain a little bit, but it's like I heard eBay is not really that secure, but I don't know if it connects in any like type of way, so I just wanted to know.
Yeah, that's right. So what you mentioned, was there any comment there? Okay. So what you mentioned about security, definitely true. So if you have a central database, like if you have information only in one place, one data center, it's really dangerous, right? It's not as secure, because what if all the hacker needs to do is just hack that data center, that data point of contact, right? But when this information is distributed to everyone who is participating in the network, what happens is that the hacker not only needs to, and also before that, not only is distributed, but also it's validated real time and updated to everyone's computer every 10 minutes. It's going to be almost impossible to hack. And that's why it provides a lot of security, as I mentioned before, about how it's so hard to forge a block and forge the transaction data, right? So yes, definitely security.
One thing too,
I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I'd say my dad, he owns a hardware store, and he sells a ton of stuff on eBay. And so like he'll have a tool that he wants to sell for $1,000. Oh no, he'll have a tool that he wants to sell. He'd be okay with getting $800 for it, for example. And then, but he can't find a buyer, so he may find a buyer that's based in Brazil or Western Europe, just anywhere in the world. But they don't trust each other, and so I guess you could use Craigslist or some of these other third-party sites that are not really trusted, and who knows if it's a psycho or a serial killer on the other side. But you just can't trust it, and so that's the reason why he uses eBay, and he pays eBay 30% of whatever he sells. And so for him to sell that, he has to make the price higher. Because he needs to pay eBay. So instead of selling for 700 or 800, he'll sell it for 1,000. And then the buyer on the other side doesn't want to pay 1,000. They probably want to only pay 700 or 800, but they don't trust my dad. The hardware tool could be broken, it could be fake. And so what they do is they buy it on eBay, and they trust eBay, because if my father doesn't deliver the tool, then eBay will pay their money back. Or if my father mails a tool to Brazil and the guy doesn't pay, then eBay will pay my father back. And the cost of that transaction is at $300. Now imagine if you could remove eBay. Imagine if you could somehow trust this person you've never met. And you guys can organize your activities. You guys could come to an agreement on, hey, let's agree to this decision together. And again, using your eBay example, that's what the blockchain enables you to do. It enables you using math, again, which math is not changeable. Again, 2 + 2 will equal 4 until God changes that. But imagine if you can trust math and it's cryptographically hashed, then you could remove an eBay. And my dad could sell it for 700 and get what he needs, and the guy could only pay 700 and use the other 300 to buy food for his family or whatever it is. It's these companies in the middle that are extracting a rent. They're basically taking money. And the reason why they're able to do that is because we don't trust the other person. The blockchain enables us to do that.
Oh, but I have a question. The reason we are using eBay or Amazon things is, as we said, the reason is, we trust their a network. We trust that they are providing, good services, and we can trust the other seller through the Amazon, right? But another reason we are using the Amazon or eBay is because we cannot find what we need contacting all other people in the world. So they are making some kind of marketing plan, a marketing platform, right?
So to your point, you're absolutely right. It's called a network effect, right? If there's only 1% on Amazon, it's probably a useless network. But if there's 1 billion people buying and selling, there is a network effect, and there's a benefit there. I think the blockchain industry is where the internet was in the 1990s. When you had AOL, it's super early days. So right now we may look at it and say, oh my gosh, this is dumb, and why would anybody care about this? I think for a remnant that's 12 to 16 years old, when they're 22 or 23, this is going to be everywhere. And so that's the reason why I agree with you. Amazon does have a network effect, and it's a moat that they have that they'll protect. And it's a reason why they're able to extract rents and extract fees. But I think if you think about the we just talked about this. What was that other platform, Changyong, that we were talking about, a streaming platform, like YouNow? People can use YouTube or some other platforms and pay Google a 30% fee. But what if there was a platform like YouNow.com or some other decentralized platform where you basically keep it? It's not going to happen immediately, but I'd have to imagine, especially starting with the younger generation, they're going to gravitate towards that. Because if they can control that data themselves and they can retain that power, for us, we're used to Amazon, but I'd say the flow of the world is headed in that direction.
Is there any other question?
All right, just to since everyone's kind of frozen, so so as we have talked about, blockchain is currently it's just beginning right now, and so maybe we won't be able to see with our physical eyes how impactful the technology is. But like, when do you guys think that it's gonna be? When do you guys think it's gonna be able to? It's gonna be grow up to the level that everyone just will notice, like, oh, it's really happening, not just with the Bitcoin or with current situation, but to witness that that blockchain technology is is infiltrating in our everyday life.
Yeah, so I'd say it already is. We don't see it, but it is. If you think about what the U.S. federal government is doing, what every federal government is doing in printing money, again, there's a central authority. We trust the government, but Bitcoin is immutable. There's a fixed supply, and so although we may or may not understand it, it's already happening. And the coronavirus, if anything, it's accelerating it. The Fed wasn't printing money until the coronavirus happened. And so if you kind of take a step back and you're like, okay, this coronavirus isn't just an accident that happened in Wuhan, China. This is the flow of the world, and it's going to accelerate and push for the adoption of these technologies. And the governments are pushing it forward as well, because the governments are under the control not of the Holy Spirit, but a different spirit. And so they're all pushing printing money. So if they print money, what's immutable? The blockchain is immutable. As Kita mentioned, you can't just print money on it. And so although we don't see it in our daily lives, it's happening right now. And that is what's going on. And it's so important for the remnant to understand that, because in 10 years, the same way that TikToks and Instagram and Facebook is ubiquitous today, and the same way that we use chats and all these ways to communicate, this technology is going to be prominent. Yeah, it could be Amazon or IBM controlling some aspects of it, but that's only for their customers, their Fortune 500 customers. The majority of the users, Bitcoin has a $250 billion market cap. Who owns that? It's millions and millions of individuals that are transacting on it, that are part of the network. That's going to only grow. I can't imagine it's going to disappear.
Definitely.
Hi, Eddie. This is Sung. Long time no see, guys.
Hey.
I have a quick question about the. You said it's a government actually about the Federal Reserve, right? A central bank. Do you think actually right? I mean the cryptocurrency is very smart, and also I mean the expense is actually lower than actually current like dollar. We have to print actually it actually. It's a waste of money, right? We print money, right? A lot of money. But do you think the government will like it? I mean, we know actually everybody knows actually. I mean, we are human being, and then as our instinct, government has gone, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. The government doesn't like it. The U.S. government is actually trying to figure out. They have contingency plans of young people. I mean, they probably look at the protests, but they have a contingency plan around young people that don't use. If you use Bank of America, the moment you put your card in there, the government knows exactly where you're at. And they can come find you. But if you could transact on the Bitcoin network, it's uncontrollable, because even if you were to shut down all the computers here in the U.S., it would still run in Canada, it would still run in Mexico, it would still run in China, it would still run in Korea. And so, yeah, the government is not happy about what's going on because they can't control it. But again, that's the flow of the world. It's headed in that direction. And so, what can they do? They can monitor anytime I move money from Bank of America to Coinbase to buy some Bitcoin. They can see that and they can stop that. But do you know how easy it is to make a Bitcoin wallet? Kita and I, we just did it yesterday. If you have a Chrome browser, there's an app called MetaMask. You just have to download that, and you can receive billions of dollars, millions of dollars in Bitcoin if you wanted to. No identification, no address, no nothing. It's just an application on your computer. And if you put that on your cell phone, you could walk across the border into Canada with $100 million, and no government could ever stop you from it. That's the power of decentralization, and that's a direction.
Right. I mean, it can have a lot of power and a strong power, but the thing is, I mean, as I said, the government has gone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the bottom, actually, if they actually fighting with the actual cryptocurrency, the government, right? Government has gone.
Government has gone, yeah.
Yeah, they don't have actually the military service, right? They can prohibit actually somebody has a military service like that. I mean, at the bottom. I mean, at the end of actually the fighting.
Yeah. I mean, if like Hite owned Bitcoin and the government came and said, and they pointed a gun to him, they said, you have to give us your Bitcoin, they would probably do that. It actually happened. Back in the early 1900s, the government said gold is illegal. Most people here probably don't remember that. They actually said gold is illegal, and if you own it, you can go to jail. So give us all of your gold. With Bitcoin, because it's based on code, because it's on the internet, it's on the cloud, you can't actually do that. And so, yeah, the government has a gun, and they can still force individuals to do things. But the ability to basically move this money wherever you want, this is probably the first time in history where the government's gun probably matters a little bit less. Because if you try to move, if you own real estate, which I know you do, and you try to move to Korea, your real estate here in America would be controlled by the government. If you had that at Bank of America, they would prevent you from wiring it to a Korean bank. But if you could put it on a USB drive, all you have to do is just hop on an airplane and you can walk away with that. They can't control it.
Yeah, I heard that like China has banned all kinds of cryptocurrency transactions in their country, but still Chinese people are one of the most like influential Bitcoin owners.
They are, yeah.
Yeah. So even though so that's gonna happen, right? Even though government tries to prohibit or like make cryptocurrency illegal
That's right.
or something, yeah, it's just gonna live with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like so as Sung Chipsa님 or said, like
Yeah.
like world organizations, like world international organizations, like you can clearly see that they dislike the completely decentralized technology. So they adopt to like Ripple or XRP, and they're partnering with blockchains that are private, that give the governments the power and the authority and the control over the users. Like they partner with those people, not the completely decentralized versions of blockchain. So they do dislike it, but as Eddie and Chanya mentioned, I think this sort of like anarchism, if you put it really strongly, but also kind of like getting the power back to the people. I think this kind of movement is kind of
Yeah,
inevitable.
I'd say that's where it was 10 years ago. Yeah. If you look at Bitcoin today, it's less anarchic. About 2 months ago, there's one of the most famous investors on Wall Street. His name is Paul Tudor Jones. He bought about $500 million of Bitcoin because he said this is the only money that the government cannot control or manipulate. So yes, it used to be anarchists. It used to be people who were like they lived in their parents' basements and you know they probably looked like they wanted to overthrow the government. It's the smartest money in Wall Street is investing in this right now because they realize that the U.S. federal government cannot touch it. No government can touch it. And so yeah, the government has guns. There's no doubt about that. But the value that's locked up in computer code, it's immutable.
Just to add on about these governments and their reaction to cryptocurrency. Actually, Venezuela has adopted a cryptocurrency themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, because their economic situation is pretty much in shambles right now.
Right.
They're suffering. Their previous currency was suffering from hyperinflation, and the oil prices kept going down. So they introduced a cryptocurrency which they call the Petro.
Yep.
Well, which is based, I believe, on the oil prices. So, so they designed it in a way where you can do transactions.
Yeah.
That involve like oil as well as gas prices, but not like day-to-day payments.
That's right.
Yeah, so they're hoping that it can go, like they can turn the tide against hyperinflation, but the problem is that there's a lot of countries that don't like this, like especially the US. They believe that Venezuela is trying to take advantage of the cryptocurrency and the way it works to avoid sanctions, economic sanctions on them. And also there's like rumors that like Russia's involved as well.
Yeah.
So whether or not like a cryptocurrency can work in a for entire country's economy, it's not like really certain yet. But like based on like Venezuela, which is like a kind of something different from what people would normally think of cryptocurrency as decentralized, but like Venezuela is trying to centralize their currency.
Yeah.
Whatever their motive is. So I think it's interesting how other governments could possibly implement cryptocurrency, whether they have to or they don't like it.
Yeah. I'd say what's interesting is you said the U.S. wants to block it, but they can't. They want to put sanctions on it, but they can't. And I think that's a key part about it. If you want to move money in today's world, whether it's on the Cash App or it's through Venmo or it's an overseas wire, it goes through the traditional banking rails, which the U.S. government controls. But to your point, this cryptocurrency, the reason why Venezuela likes it is the U.S. government can control it. Imagine Bitcoin. Imagine at the individual level, the Venezuelan government cannot control it. There's a reason why even in North Korea today, the U.S. dollar circulates. It's illegal, but people don't trust the local currency. They use the U.S. dollar, and it circulates in the local North Korean economy. Imagine if you could digitize that. Imagine if you could, again, put that on a USB thumb drive. That's going to be powerful, and nobody can touch it.
Yeah, adding a bit of economic perspective there is that like one of the I guess criticisms of cryptocurrency is that it's unstable, but there are many ways like stablecoin and there are ways to kind of fight that. But then the thing is, compared to Venezuelan currency, Bitcoin is a lot more stable. Especially when your currency is experiencing like 1,000% inflation rate, your money that you hold means nothing. So there will be no, I guess, you just have to accept it. And also, I think somebody asked like, what could be how the entire world will not the entire world, but a lot of people will start like accepting it. I think there has to be a catalytic event. And I think one of them was this coronavirus, but also from my economic perspective, I think there will be a time where dollar crashes. And I might not, but every 100 years, there has been a time where our currency monetary system completely changed from gold-based to like fiat currency, and like before, like it was different. But it's about like 100 years since it's coming for the new, and especially like after the coronavirus, and if there is another recession. So in 2008 recession, what happened was you can compare it as if like you got bitten by a snake, but then you're not really taking out the poison, but you're just putting like Band-Aid over it, like a lot. Like that's like how you can compare our economy is. So we didn't really completely structurally dealt with the economic crisis, but what we did was we printed a lot of money in order to make it flow. So after coronavirus, and let's say like there are so many other events that could happen, but let's say it leads to government printing more and more and more money, that right now our dollars are maintained because a lot of people, a lot of countries want it. Like it's run not by anything else, but by demand for dollars. That's what gives the value to dollars. But if the demands start decreasing because people like other countries are starting to like disbelieve, wait, like dollar actually might crash, and they start asking for money back. That's when hyperinflation can actually happen in America as well, in the US. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but one day if that happens, will you try to keep the currency, fiat currency, the dollars that will fluctuate like crazy every day, or will you have it in something that's more stable? So that's just one perspective.
Yeah, I understand too. Actually, yeah, as you said, actually, after coronavirus, actually, COVID-19. I mean, government making more, actually printing much more money than actually. I mean, it's gonna be more money than 2008 crisis, right? And the gold and silver. I mean, the gold actually price is going up too, right?
Yeah.
So I understand that. Yeah, right. I mean, the cryptocurrency can be more stable, right? Yeah.
Do you know how hard it is to buy gold? We have investors that want to buy. It's actually very, very difficult to buy gold. The government doesn't make it easy. If you wanted to get a gold bar or gold coin, you have to pay like a 20 to 30% premium, but they discourage it. And so if you buy gold, number one, you pay a premium. Number two, you have to have it shipped to you, so that costs money. Number three, you need to be able to store it in a safe place, so there's ongoing storage costs. Number four, if you wanted to buy something with that gold, you'd have to break off a little piece and go to the supermarket and say, "Here's my gold, and I wanna buy some groceries." It's not a good medium of exchange if you think about currencies.
That's correct. That's correct. A lot of things actually we have to pay extra, right?
Yeah. So
not efficient,
but
right.
if it's digital, if it has the same kind of qualities of it, but it's much more fungible and you can move it around. But like I'd say, like, as it relates to like the remnants that are on this call, like why should you even care about this? You can tell by who's talking. It's like the older people who care about preserving wealth and understand economics. The reason why you should care about this is I think in about 10 years there's going to be a time, as Kita said, where the dollar is not going to be like the dollar you have today that helps you buy an ice cream or buy an app on the iTunes App Store. It's not going to buy that for you later on. And so between now and then, would you rather, put your money in your piggy bank and save that, or would you, as Sung is intimating, as Kita is intimating, would you rather put that in a different asset class? And like, this is not an investment call, but what does that mean? Why is Bitcoin able to do that? Why is this like this thing that was created by some like mysterious anonymous person with some like really cool technology? Why is everybody starting to believe in this? Why is everybody putting their money into this? You kind of have to wonder, right? Like, who's behind that? Who's behind that and controlling it? Right now, nobody is. But there is a different spirit that created that. And the corollary, again, from a spiritual perspective, is that it's this desire to move away from trusting in a central authority. It's the same thing in Genesis 3, where we didn't trust what God said and we trusted what somebody else said. That's exactly what's going on right now as well. And so what that means from a dollar's perspective, I feel like in 10 years from now, as Kita mentioned, the US dollar is going to be worth a lot less, and gold, real estate, and probably Bitcoin are going to be the only things that are going to hold their value. But outside of that, do you see the underlying flow? Do you see that Satoshi Nakamoto is a fake person? Do you see that? Do you realize that it's worth $300 billion for some reason? Why is that? It's curious.
Oh, I have a question more. How about the tax? Do you think the government can, collect the tax based on the earning through the Bitcoin, whatever those things?
How can they do that? How can they do that when the Bitcoin that I own, there's a private, if I sent you Bitcoin, Hechung, it's not even connected to your name. So government doesn't even know that you own Bitcoin.
That's the what I'm concerned. Yeah, actually, the existence of the government is based on the actually financial, power based on our tax, right?
Yeah.
If the income tax cannot be deducted from those incomes, right? Then the government do their roles. Right?
That's why we talked about this last week as well. Like, somebody asked a question, you know, is a legal framework in place to basically govern this new technology? It's not. There's a reason why the SEC and the U.S. government haven't passed laws on this yet. They don't know how to regulate it. They don't know how to tax it. And so if I wanted to, like literally right after we finish this call on your Chrome browser, Google search MetaMask, download the application, and without your name or anything attached to it, you can create a Bitcoin wallet. And if you give somebody $1,000, they can send you $1,000 in Bitcoin, and nobody will ever know that you own it. You could potentially be completely off the radar. So you're right. Yeah, the government can't tax it right now. They're trying to figure that out. And so they may make it illegal, like they did in China, as Chanyang mentioned, or they may force people to only use the official kind of like on-ramps. Like I have to put money into Wells Fargo to buy Bitcoin, and then they can track that. It's either that or, and you're already seeing this, they could use increased surveillance. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this video chat is being recorded by somebody else outside of the YPON people. They could surveil it, and they can tie the movement of Bitcoin back to your IP address, and they can come and say, hey, we demand you pay taxes on this Bitcoin that was transferred to you. So yeah, you're right. There's no way to tax it right now. The government just can't control it.
To add on to that, however, if they work with let's say blockchain, like they partner with like a blockchain company and develop a solution where it can contain people's IDs, it can contain people's healthcare information, it can you can enter in your income information, your company information, and if they come up with this solution and make a private blockchain that works for the country, it's possible to collect taxes on fiat currency, not on the blockchain, as in like Bitcoin or Ethereum that are public blockchain. But if they do come up with these like solutions, like a private blockchain solution that is used for surveillance and that is used for more control, it is possible. And if they mandate each citizen to kind of be part of the blockchain, like you have, in order to be a citizen, you have to be part of this blockchain, private blockchain, then it's possible.
Well, it's not that, right? It's we're gonna give. Imagine this. I think we're almost there. I know everybody got a $1,200 stimulus payment. What if the U.S. government said, "Hey, we're gonna do this thing called universal basic income. We want to make sure everybody can pay rent and buy food. So everybody will get $1,000 a month. We guarantee it. But in order to get it, we have to verify your identity. So it's very simple. Just go to the government, get this little chip in your hand, and then we can immediately put $1,000 in there, and we'll take care of you.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of people would. I feel like a lot of people would go get that. Or you have to open up an account with the Federal Reserve directly. That's
definitely.
I feel like that's the flow of the world.
Right.
I feel like that's the direction that we're headed.
Or you can't buy or sell unless you have the chip. Or
or it's just like it's. I mean. Like the government already did that. They gave $1,200. They want to give more. Andrew Yang, who was a presidential candidate, said we should give everybody $1,000 a month. Are you going to mail that to people's homes? No way, dude. Are you going to put? Not everybody has checking accounts. Like Aaron doesn't have a checking account. How are you going to make sure Aaron gets his check? Well, you can give him an ID card, but he could lose it, and somebody. The best probably thing is Microsoft's blockchain technology, where you implant a chip into your body and it's tied directly to you, then you can be guaranteed to get money from the government. I feel like most people will say, okay.
I guess not even a chip in the body. Like, have you guys seen the movie Kingsman?
Yeah.
Where the villain just says like, we'll provide you free internet, just change to our SIM card, and that's all. Everyone just lines in front of the like those shops and change their SIM card. And as we know, like we cannot live without cell phone right now. Basically, cell phones, like not in US but in Korea or in some countries, are basically the passport. Like they just have to invent something that's so vital for us, and everyone will just volunteer to get one. Like I heard that Tesla is currently planning on like a global Wi-Fi network thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
third world, third world countries, yeah.
Free
Wi-Fi.
And if they'll just say like, you guys just have to make our like Bitcoin wallet or cryptocurrency wallet, and you can use the network freely, and that's all. Like, world will be conquered in 5 seconds or something.
Yeah, so I think a lot of time has passed, but then I want you guys to just really think about the flow, like where this world is going, especially looking now you guys understand what the technology is and what kind of impacts it could bring. Just we listed a few and we shared about it, but I want you guys to think about it and have now you guys have a basis, have do some like self-research, just look into more deeply like what this is all about. How can this be changed now that you guys have a basic information about it? And we will, I think Hyejeong requested, but I will send like a final email with all the supplementary information. And yeah, if you want to leave, you can. If you want to stay around and just like continue talking, you're welcome to do that. And please send me your address by next week, Monday. And we'll send you the Bitcoin. And let's thank New York Bomb, who are funding, this cryptocurrency reward. That's important because it actually gives you like a real experience with this cryptocurrency world. And through that, you learn a lot. You already, like a lot of you sent me the cryptocurrency wallet address, and just like looking at Ethereum, well, what the heck is Ethereum? Like, why does this wallet address look like this and things like that? You just do it by you learn by doing it. So yeah, let's thank New York Bomb, and I'll communicate through email. If you want to stay around, let's just chat more. Yeah, but official lecture this is the end. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Good. Isaac still looks
Ita, will you check the message that I sent you?
Message?
Yeah. It's about my wallet.
Oh, gotcha. Your Cash App, right? Cash App?
Oh, also, I have a question. So someone sent me Bitcoin through Cash App a couple weeks ago, and then when I was trying to send you my wallet address again, I noticed that it changed. And actually, like, it changes every time I log into Cash App. It's normal, right?
Yeah, because
it's kind of like the hash that you were talking about before.
Yeah, because it's centralized, right? So if I'm the Cash App company, I get like 1,000 from Sharon, 1,000 from Kita. I just put it all together, and whenever somebody needs to move something or receive something, I just give them basically a temporary Bitcoin address to move the money. Behind that, it's just like your Bank of America account number. There's a very, very specific account number, so it's completely centralized. It's just that they'll issue that.
Oh.
So anytime you want to get new Bitcoin, you should, if they're doing it correctly, the old one should work as well. But you should just get the newest one and make sure you.
Got it. And regarding mining, like, are people simultaneously, like, are there miners who are verifying those information that's on Cash App, or is that just like what Cash App does, and that's why it's not like completely decentralized, it's like centralized?
No, so like at its core, the blockchain is a distributed ledger, right?
Right.
Ledger meaning like an accounting book. It's
Yeah,
literally
like a receipt, kind of.
It's basically receipts, right? But it's just distributed. So in the case of Cash App, the ledger itself is still centralized. If there's one company that controls everything, and going back to Kita's earlier graphic, there's a central database that manages all that. It just happens to be that the thing that's coming in and out is Bitcoin. And so like if it was like a tool company, it could be like pickaxes and shovels, but like that the person that controls who or marks and says, oh, this person owns this or that, it's still that one company. So yeah, it's not actually being written on the blockchain. Only when you transfer it does it actually get written to the core Bitcoin blockchain. But it's still Cash App that's going to guarantee the movement of this funds.
Right, got it. And also, what gives monetary value to different coins that are being created right now?
That's a great question. So our team of analysts, they're doing a ton of work on this. So there's basically two main reasons. One is based on supply and demand, right? Like, why does gold have any value? I guess if you want gold jewelry or gold teeth, or you need gold for something, there's an actual demand for that metal. But outside of that, it's speculators. It's people that create a market and say, I'm willing to buy gold. Let me check right now. I'm willing to buy gold at $1,756 per troy ounce. And it's completely just faith in gold. That's all it is. The reason why they have faith in it is because it's been tested for thousands of years. But but there are tokens, which are like companies, like Google has value. Google stock has value. Tesla stock has value because they generate revenues, they pay employees salaries, and then they have profits left over. That's the way. There are certain tokens that are being created today that actually operate, which is really interesting. So you can actually value them and say, oh, this token, I'd be willing to pay $200 for this token because I can look at the cash flows from this and derive a value for it. So it's what you're seeing is a lot of the valuation techniques that have been used in traditional Wall Street being applied to this asset class. But the key innovation is the blockchain technology, which allows you to basically do away with all the old frictions.
Because I see so many different types of coins being created.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, is it participation? So as you said, like supply and demand, like, is that really what gives it monetary value or what? Because I know, I remember, I forget like which company, but like they were saying how once in a while they would take away like, or like delete some coins.
Yeah, it's Binance. So it's a Binance token. They have this thing called a burning mechanism.
Right.
It's the same way that a share buyback works. And so they'll basically say, if people continue to use our token, we'll set aside 20%. And I think the most recent burn was like $150 million or something. It was like a lot of money. And they'll basically take that and they'll say, we'll buy our Binance token, which is a fixed supply, and we'll basically burn it, which is deleting it or just throwing it away, which decreases the supply, which should increase the price, right? And so that's just math. That's based on like mathematical principle and it's underpinned by economics. But like the supply and demand, like when you worked at my last company and we were working on that cacao project, like the underlying thesis there was that the 50 million users of Kakal's app would basically want to buy Clayton's token. And because in order to get certain access to certain services, you would have to own this Clayton token, which if you remember, I think we would have invested in it at 2 cents and it's probably trading at like 25 cents. So it's like a 1,200% return, which is pretty phenomenal. But the idea there is that like people would basically trade their yuan or dollars or gold or whatever it is and buy this token instead, and they would hold on to it because by holding on to it, number one, they would think it would appreciate. But number two, they would be able to use that on the platform. And so that's supply and demand. If people demand it, the price is going to go much.
Got it. Thank you.
Eddie, thank you for all the information. And I need more basic things to ask more questions. And then, but I'm very curious about those fields actually. Yeah. So, Kite, thank you. And please send me some kind of link or the books recommend, right? Okay. Thank you so much. I'm leaving.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
And wait,
say that didn't you plan that some certificate things you're gonna give to the remnants to participate here?
Yeah. So they
on next Remnant Day.
Yeah, next Remnant Day. So we don't have to like if you could announce. You don't have to announce it. Yeah, we already have their contact information, like email and everything. So
yeah, ideally, because we also have people around the world. We'll do it separately and not like everybody at one time. So
okay, so we don't have to make any schedule for that.
No.
I think the best way is for Kite to communicate. Oh, we will send out the certificates for everybody shortly, and do that on our own. So I think.
Okay. And then did you guys record all those 3 lectures?
We did.
Okay. If it's okay, if it's available, could you share those, link to the, that Remnant Day, that chat room?
Sure. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on YouTube. Yeah.
Please share it. Yeah, because the other remnants may want to see it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Emily. Goodbye.
I have a
Okay,
quick question.
bye.
The
Uh-huh.
YouTube video that you were showing, it's called Block Greek. Geek.
Block Geek, yeah.
Block Geek. Okay,
Uh-huh.
thank you.
It's very
That's
helpful.
all. Yeah. Next time you guys should do this on like a YouNow or some kind of like platform like that, and then
That's
so that like when
blockchain-based,
we
yeah.
all watch it, yeah, you guys can earn something. I don't know.
That's
It'd be
true.
more interesting and fun, and I think it'll help to like conceptualize.
Mm,
But yeah, thank you so
good
much.
idea. Of course. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Eddie, for saving my saving me. It was really nice having you. It was really nice having you because
This is really good.
so many questions that I was like, oh well, how should I answer that? But then you stepped in. It was really and then just you asking questions. That was because you understand like the central themes, like the central ideas. So it's really good.
No, it was really good. I know most of the folks have kind of fallen off, but I thought it was really, really good. What's the game plan for? I guess you guys should just stay on, but what's the game plan for the certificates and getting the BTC over to the people?
Oh yeah.
The certificate is we found this site and you guys
I found a site.
Yeah, so it will generate
blockchain based.
I don't know. The trial account is like 20 people, so I probably have to sacrifice my own other kind of Gmail account. But I'll take care of that.
Yeah, with the coin, I think a lot of people signed up a MetaMask.
Yeah.
And it's only Ethereum, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
so
Or
I made
20 tokens.
right. So I made sure that people send me like what kind of wallet they have, like whether it's Ethereum or Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I think I have about 11 people so far.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, we'll wait a little bit. And
How much are we getting?
Very little.
Very little.
Is Sharon getting it too? Is Sharon getting it too?
I don't know. She sent me an
Yeah, of
address, so
Yes, I
the
did. I
only
emailed
one
it
with
to
the
you.
Cash App. Yeah, she did.
Sharon is the only non-remnant because she's Libong now. That's eligible.
How about the lecture?
Wait, you guys should divide whoever doesn't like ask for it, like who doesn't send the wallet. You guys should just like
should go all to
I mean,
lecturers.
This
Okay.
is why I love her. She's super commercial.
All the rest of the lecturers.
Yeah, but I guess we should just share like on email how to make wallet kind of thing. I guess like there's gonna be a lot who doesn't even know where to begin.
So simple though.
On MetaMask, it's super simple. It's like
Super simple.
It's like a platform for like money laundering, dude. It's like no ID,
No verification
Oh my
necessary.
no
God.
verification, nothing. You just like download. And this is the reason why it touches like no payment rails. So is this still recording? We should probably stop recording this.
Oh yeah. We should.
Yeah.
How do you start recording?